My first question to you is, how did you become an actor? Were your parents actors? How did you become an actor?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll tell it. My parents were not actors. Nobody in my family was in show business as far as I can recall. But from an early age, I was a movie buff.
Uh-huh.
And I used to watch all kinds of TV shows when I was young. And I used to go see all the monster movies, horror movies, and so forth that would come out. And I'd watch the old ones on TV. So I really had a love for movies. And I didn't really come out of the theater like some actors do. I'm movie-based, you might say.
Yeah.
So anyway, I really loved movies, but I figured, there's not much chance I'll ever be in one, living in Maryland.
Uh-huh.
But when I was in high school, I never took any drama courses, but I took some drama courses in college, and I did some college plays, and I enjoyed it. And along the way, I saw some movies at a drive-in theater, Blood Feast and 2000 Maniacs. Mm-hmm. And those were made in Florida, and those were the first regional movies I ever saw. And I realized, geez, this doesn't look like anything that Hollywood made. It's very primitive and amateurish compared to Hollywood. And a lot of the actors, I said to myself, I can do as well as most of them, if not better. And it gave me some hope that maybe there was a way to get into movies, if not in Hollywood, at least in Baltimore. So that was in the back of my mind that guys in Florida, Herschel Gordon Lewis and David Friedman, made regional movies that made a lot of money. That was kind of in the back of my mind. Mm-hmm. And time went on, and I did plays in college, and I did community theater when I got out of college, and there was a guy named John Waters.
Yep.
In Maryland. He was the only independent filmmaker that I ever heard of in Maryland. Uh-huh. Because people just didn't make movies, independent movies like they do now, mostly because of the expense. Back in the old days, you had to use motion picture film and movie cameras and you had to go through all kinds of expenses to have the film processed and edited and everything like that. And so most people couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's a different story because everybody with a computer and a camcorder is a filmmaker. But in those days you had to have some resources. So John Waters was the only one around that I knew of. And I, sent him a resume and got a part in Female Trouble, which was my first movie. Actually, I had known John Waters earlier. We were in 8th grade homeroom together, but I lost track of him, and I wasn't sure if the John Waters filmmaker was the same guy I knew in junior high school. Mm-hmm. But it turned out to be the same person, and I had that part as the chaplain who escorts Divine to the electric chair at the end of Female Trouble. And then I auditioned for his next movie, Desperate Living, and I got the part of Bosley Gravel, who's married to Mink Stoll and who gets sat on by the family maid in the beginning of Desperate Living. And then around 1976, another filmmaker popped up in Maryland named Don Dohler, and he wanted to make, unlike John Waters, who made comedies, Don Dohler wanted to make science fiction and horror movies. So I got involved with him and was in his first science fiction movie, The Alien Factor. And so I was in all the rest of his movies as well. So I got to work with two fledgling filmmakers back in the 70s.
Yeah.
So that was how I got started, actually.
Yeah. So you've had a long career. You've started...
Yeah, that means I'm old, which I am. I started in the 70s.
I didn't say you were old, but...
So if you see Female you see female trouble and look at my role in that, I could be my own son or grandson compared to what I look like today.
I didn't say you were old, but...
No, I know. I thought I'd beat you. I thought I'd say it myself and beat you to it.
Have you done theater acting, like stage acting? You said you didn't.
I have done some in some of the local community theater groups, like the Spotlighters and the Vagabonds, and but I stopped doing that in probably the 70s. I don't have the energy for that anymore, especially for free. Because plays take up a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like I would go after work to rehearsals, like Monday through Thursday, for a whole month, something like that. And then the next month we do the play on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that's like a lot of time. So I just don't have the energy for that or the desire. I'd rather do films because a lot of the parts I do don't take that long. So once it's done, it's done. So I don't do plays anymore. But I did a few in college and then in the community afterwards.
Yeah. Because, as you said, theater does take a lot out of you. You know, it's very energetic. I've done a few.
I know. If I was getting paid for it and had nothing else to do, it might be different. But it's never, when I did the plays before, I always had to work all day long. It's too grueling to work and do a play at the same time. I mean, you can do that stuff when you're younger, but it's harder to do it as you get older.
Yeah. I've done a few stage plays for school or whatever, and it's fun, but it does get tiring, you know, because...
Oh, yeah. And time-consuming.
Are you also a voice actor? Have you done voiceovers or anything?
Not too often. I think I've done a couple such jobs, but not too much, really.
Yeah.
I don't really do that much at all. Maybe one or a couple of jobs along the way, but I don't get hired for that very often.
Yeah. What is the most challenging or difficult part of being an actor? What is the most challenging or difficult part you find being an actor?
Well, as I get older, it's harder and harder for me to remember my lines. I never was good at remembering lines, and as I get older, it's harder to remember a lot of lines, so that's one thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's travel involved. I'd rather do acting just around here and sleep in my own bed at night, but, you know, sometimes I have to go out of town.
Yeah.
So that's always sort of an inconvenience, because I have 5 pets, and when I'm gone, nobody's here to take care of them, so it becomes a problem being away from home.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not good on travel either. So
yeah, especially airplanes.
I don't fly.
I'm always afraid. I'm always afraid the plane's going to crash.
Sounds like me. I never been on one, but I know if I get on one with my luck, it's going to crash. So.
Oh well, I hope not. But it's not as much fun as you might think. It's especially nowadays where you have to go through so much security. It takes all the fun out of it. Have your shoes inspected and metal detectors and stuff, and it's not as much fun as it used to be.
Yeah. Do you have any upcoming projects as an acting? Yeah.
Well, I'm working on a show now with Lee Dahl.
Yeah.
We're both acting in it. It's called Bill Tillman and the Outlaws.
Yeah.
And it's a Western.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. It's the third Western to be shot in Maryland by a producer named Wayne Shipley.
Uh-huh.
And he made 2 previous Westerns, and this one he's making. And the main set is in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, where I'll have to go next next month for a few days.
Uh-huh.
And it takes place in the early 1900s, maybe 1911. And so it's not an old Western. There's motor cars around and things like that. But it should be interesting. And he's hired, he already got Johnny Crawford from the Riflemen to play a part for a day.
Uh-huh.
And he's hiring a couple other people. I won't mention their names until it's over with and they're hired. But this is an interesting project, something different for me, because I mostly do science fiction and horror movies.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I interviewed an actor who's working on that film also, so I kind of know a little bit.
Oh, yes, Brian.
Uh-huh. Brian St. August, yeah. Uh-huh.
Brian, yes, he's in it.
He's did the other two westerns,
he loves
too.
To travel, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice man, and I'll be interviewing Lee Dahl in a few days, too. So.
Oh, good. Yeah, Lee and I are driving down there to West Virginia when the time comes.
Yeah. And you've done some of his...
Traveling together.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I said you've done some of his movies, too, Lee Dahl. He's done a few.
I certainly have. The Luana Lee movies that he made and other things that he's made. It was a lot of fun.
How did you get started with that? Did he just call you, or you cast as that? How did?
Well, actually, I met him, or I didn't meet him, but he was a customer of mine when I had a mail order videotape business in the 80s, in the 1980s, and he was a customer of mine. I didn't meet him in person until years later, and I think he had heard of, come across me on Facebook. A lot of people find me on Facebook, and I've gotten some jobs out of that.
Yeah.
So I think he probably contacted me through Facebook, and I think that's how he got in touch with me. He was aware of the movies I had done with John Waters and Don Dohler, and I guess that's why he wanted to hire me.
Yeah. My last question to you is, what is your advice to people who want to be an actor? I know we discussed a little bit of that, but do you have any other advice to people?
Well, the first thing is the person should realize that it's not a very secure career unless you're making tons of money. And even some of the people who make tons of money, can't hold on to it. I would recommend having a backup plan, a backup career.
Yeah. And
that way, if the acting thing doesn't work, you have another profession. It's funny, a lot of actors, though, when their career fades out, they get into another profession. Often it's real estate. I know of several actors. I mean, name actors like Dana Andrews. I read where after his acting career ended, he got into real estate. And I think I read he said he made more money in real estate than he did in acting. And his career goes. A lot of people remember him from Curse of the Demon, but he was in a lot of film noirs and dramas before that, and so forth. So have a backup profession, and it's not so much. It's not as important as it was in the past to go to Hollywood, I don't think.
Yeah.
Try to do stuff locally first, I would say. I mean, if you're brave enough, you could move to California or New York.
Yeah.
But if you're settled in a certain region, try to make the most of that region.
Yeah.
Of working in that area.
Yeah.
Because a lot of movies are shot on location these days, and I guess it depends what your goals are. I mean, if you're dead set about having a Hollywood career, then you should go to Hollywood because you won't be discovered necessarily in your community and brought to Hollywood on somebody else's dime. You should go on your own. But it's so hard to